And it seems to me you're saying you don't have to stay together necessarily for the kids, but weigh up whether the conflict that there may be in that couple outweighs the need for stability in the family home.
Yeah, and I would say if there's conflict, that's what you really got to zero in on and deal with. That's very important, because that really does hurt the kids.
And communicate with the kids as well, like just quickly, like say to them, this is what we're doing, this is why mum and dad are doing this. Yeah, how much should we be telling them?
Well, I think you've got to try and... It will depend on how old they are and making sure the language is at their level. But if you keep in mind...
They have a lot of guilt, the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
They feel that it's... And a lot of kids, when you separate, still expect your mum and dad to get back together again.
Yeah. So I would say
really
try as best
thing.
you can to give them an understanding of what's going on, so that they feel safe and secure, because routines are important to them at that age. They just need to feel like the world's not chaotic. So
and
keep
it's
that
not
in
all
mind.
caving in.
Yeah, that's
the relationship between mum and dad might be fractured, but the rest of the world is safe. Would you please thank the lovely John Aiken? Now here's a message from the Circle and Nikki.
Do you have a family friend or a friend who continually sucks the life out of you? Do you walk on eggshells trying not to upset them? Or are you often on the end of a receiving cruel put-down? These people are what psychologists call emotional vampires, and until you address their behaviour, you're continually going to be affected by them. To explain more, please welcome back relationship psychologist John Aiken.
Good morning, guys.
John, I'm so excited about this topic.
I think it's because everyone has emotional vampires in their life.
But we don't realise what they are, and we've never had someone validate how we feel. So what is an emotional vampire?
Well, they are the people in your life. They could be friends, could be family members that suck the goodness out of you. They can be cruel with their comments. They can be victims and constantly complaining about themselves. They can be bullies that basically tell you what to do. At the end of the day, you will feel totally drained as a result of being around them.
How do we know we're around an emotional vampire? How would we feel?
Well, you'll go through a whole different range of feelings, but certainly before you meet up with one of these friends or family members, you'll start to feel quite anxious, and you'll feel a sense of dread, like I've got to prepare myself here because they're going to drain me. And then when you're with them, you often feel bad about yourself, and afterwards you'll think, oh, you know what, I don't really want them in my life, but then I feel obliged to have them, and so you'll feel kind of confused and often full of regret.
Sometimes though, these people, John, are people that we love dearly.
Yeah, so they can also be your intimate partner as well, which makes it really difficult to deal with them because it's so exhausting.
You become an emotional vampire overnight, pardon the pun. Like, one minute someone's fine, then something gradually happens over time and you realise that's what's going on. Is that possible? Yeah.
So they might come in not showing all their tricks and techniques, but over time they then set you up into a role. So for instance, if you've got a victim friend, for instance, they will start talking about their problems more and more and more. You'll try to fix them, they don't do anything about it, and you end up playing this role throughout your whole time with them.
They're getting something out of that though, aren't they? Which is the vampire part of it. So if you have someone like that in your life, what's your obligation to go, okay, get out of my life, but what if they are a loved one and you want to help them? How do you help them?
Well, there are different ways that you can do it, basically, and there are 4 types of emotional vampires. You've got your victim, as we've talked about. You've got your controller. You've got the person there that's constantly in a whirlwind of drama. And then you've got the narcissist, the one that loves the spotlight. It's all about them. And you want to take a different technique to each of them, but ultimately the principle is you teach people how to treat you. So you've got to teach them differently here if you want a different reaction out of them.
That's about establishing boundaries, isn't it?
Yep.
Maybe before we get to that, to help people at home that are thinking, it's vague to me what's they're talking about. What are some of the signs or of an emotional vampire? I think we've got a graphic there.
Okay. So the signs will be that, they can be cruel and sarcastic with their comments. It'll all be about them. They'll find that, they're moody, they're up and down, they're unpredictable, they can be very controlling, and they'll often blame. They'll throw everything at you or at other people so they stay the same. Ultimately, you'll feel very uncomfortable around them.
Okay, so how do we establish boundaries?
Well, you kind of have to suck it up and say, well, look, they may not like this, they may not like me by doing it, but I've got to essentially put across what my needs are. So, for instance, if it's the victim, no more do you sit there and try and fix their problems. You gently push it back to them and you'll say, how do you think you can solve that? If it's the person that's always got drama, you might say, well, before you tell me about what's happened to you today. I want to tell you about me and what I've done today. So you try and create a bit of space from that. If it's the narcissist, then you have to stand up to them and say, I've got an independent life as well, and I'm as strong as you. And with the bully, you want to share decisions and organisation rather than just let them walk all over you.
It seems like it's the person that's being affected that ends up having to do all the work.
It is.
Which is, well, I guess usual in counselling and stuff like that. You're the one who wants to change the situation. What happens when it's just not working? I mean, these people have they don't have a sense of what they're doing, so they don't react.
No. Well, what will ultimately happen is that you'll spend less and less time with them, and that's a good thing. You want to be around people that celebrate you rather than drag you down. So I would say you need to stand up to them, try and create a difference there. If they don't like it, they're just going to go off and drain someone else and leave you alone. So that's a good outcome.
And it's the whole thing, John, that we've spoken about before. Behaviour unchallenged is behaviour condoned. So it's saying to people, more than happy to see you on this, but when you come into my house, you don't tell me what to do. You don't change my things. You don't put my photos in different places. We'd love to see you, but this is the way we live our life.